is these AI email, AI SDRs, they're out there, and it's just more of the same. It's just more email, it's just more spam. So what we're doing is we're seeing, hey, there's a more of a need for human-to-human interaction, highly qualified, highly specialized, curated leads.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Small Business Black Holes, the podcast that shines a light on the hidden challenges of scaling a business. Hosted by Alan Pence, each episode explores the critical shifts entrepreneurs make as they grow beyond $1 million, $5 million, even $30 million, and move from brute force to sustainable professional growth. Stay with us as we uncover what it really takes to escape the black holes of business and scale with intention.
All right, we are back on the Small Business Black Holes podcast with Gabe Lullo from Alleyoop .io. That's their website. Gabe, welcome to the podcast. Great to meet you.
Alan, nice to meet you too. I'm a big fan. Thanks so much for having me, man. I'm excited about this. It's gonna be fun.
Appreciate it. So tell us about Alleyoop. It's a cool name.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's really in the name, right? If you're a basketball fan, you know what that is. If you're not, let me teach you. So, Alleyoop is really the ultimate assist, meaning, it's about having that perfect, throw up, layup, that alley-oop, where someone else comes in and gets all the credit. They get the slam dunk. They get the recognition. So we're a sales development agency. So with that play on words, we are focusing on appointment setting and creating lead, passing those qualified leads at the exact right time to the sellers or the founders. And so they can go ahead and get the credit, get the revenue, and slam dunk. So we have a very large team of over 100 SDRs on our sales floor, booking appointments for all different types of brands, billion-dollar enterprise companies, all the way down to founder-led sales companies. And we've been doing it for over 15 years. So we've been having a lot of fun.
Wow. So you are doing like what everybody thinks is the hardest part of the business, right? Or it's finding leads.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a podcast. It's called Do Hard Things, right? Because,
all right,
we embrace the suck, like they say in the military, right? So, prospecting, cold calling, it's hard. It's challenging. You get a lot of negativity. But like baseball, if you can knock it out of the park or at least hit the ball 3 times out of 10, you're making millions of dollars a year. So in our business, it's all about, getting those prospects to convert. And that's what we get measured on.
That's cool. So like, it's kind of, you guys are like the ultimate pickup artists, right? You're going to get rejected a lot of the time, but just keep spray and pray. You'll get the number.
All we care about is the first date, right? If I could get them to the first date and then, we're done, we don't have to build the relationship. We're not getting married, right? It's all about creating interest, getting the conversation started, and passing the baton to the account executive, founder, whoever the point of contact is, and then they run it from there.
So, and you're doing this across all industries, or is there something where it's better than others?
It's only B2B, so nothing business to consumer. So it's all B2B. But I mean, we have Peloton's a client, Zoom Info, Adobe, Ingram Micro, and then all the way down to 2 guys in an idea that got $1 million from Shark Tank. So, it really is any industry. We specialized originally in SaaS and tech and data companies. Because that's really the SDR role itself was kind of born about 10, 15 years ago. But now we've moved into professional services, financial advisors, franchises, commercial cleaning. As long as there is an appointment that is to be set in the sales journey where it's not a product-led growth type of business model, we would absolutely have an opportunity to, spend exclusive time prospecting from a outbound perspective.
Oh, interesting. So in the SaaS world, so that means it's like a demo or like so it's something that when you say product-led growth, it'd be like, I download an app and start doing stuff in it and I never talk to anybody before I start, right?
Yeah, unless you have like a high volume or big total addressable market where there's a lot of people that are downloading apps or signing up for free trials, and you don't have a good follow-up process to convert them back into closed deals, then it may make sense to have a setter, a prospector full-time on it. But usually it's not that. Usually it's a demo, a higher account, ACV or higher annual contract value, where it makes sense to have a return on investment from a human physically making calls and prospecting.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about how this market's changing, right? So you hear all about, like Google ad spending is going up and Everybody's on X for a while, now they're on LinkedIn, and cold email still works. So, like, give us sort of like a history of this and where we are.
Well, it's interesting because what was old and the original way of doing it is actually now new again. So physical cold calling was the only way really the lead gen was happening or outbound was happening. Email was very one off and there wasn't email automation. And then Marketo came out, Pardot came out, and then they're like, oh my God, we're going to fire all of our salespeople, all of our setters, and just email everybody. And everyone's just going to sign up for things. Well, they really quickly realized that actually didn't happen. So they rehired all the salespeople back, and now all salespeople use email automation, right? And so the same thing is kind of happening with AI. So there's these AI email, AI SDRs, they're out there. And it's just more of the same. It's just more email. It's just more spam. So what we're doing is we're seeing, hey, there's a more of a need for human to human interaction, highly qualified, highly specialized, curated lead. And so cold calling is actually our number one channel for getting appointment. And so that's what's interesting right now. I will say email is significantly more challenging than it used to be. Spam blockers, Gmail, Microsoft really cracking down last year in that space. So I would say cold calling is paramount still from a B2B perspective. And then content is really, is really obviously crushing it in B2B, right? The Instagram, TikTok is now blending into LinkedIn, and it's a really big space right now. LinkedIn is becoming significant when it comes to getting people's attention.
Yeah. So we hear a lot about LinkedIn now. Like, is it already done? Is it so overloaded with people, or do you still think there's like opening for the B2B? I mean, obviously it's the best B2B channel, most focused.
Yeah, I would say it's not done. It's just different than it used to be. Using Sales Navigator and DMing people on InMail is not interesting anymore. But look at what like Adam Robinson is doing or John Barros or Scott Leese. These guys have hundreds of thousands of followers in all different types of industries. And I know for a fact they're attracting a significant amount of their business through content that is specialized in their space and becoming a thought leader. The mini Gary Vaynerchuk's, if you will, of their industry. I will speak not to my own horn, but 3 years ago I had less than 1,000 followers on LinkedIn. I just hit 20,000 followers today. And it's because I started, posting content on a daily basis. And all of a sudden, like, wow, people are actually interested to hear what I have to say. Didn't think that was interesting. And now about 40% of our new business is coming from content or LinkedIn related activities.
Oh my gosh. So tell me, like, what? So I talked to Adam 8 months ago or something like that, right when he was launching the new. Can't remember which one was the old. It was the new one, our B2B, yeah. And he had blown through like close to 1 million in ARR in like 6 weeks or something like it was crazy, right? So what he was doing, if I remember, is like really focused on the marketing function. And correct me if I'm wrong about this, but he spent a long time, like 6 months, doing these kind of like video with written content under it, just like hitting that demographic over and over with different pieces of information. He's probably looking at like what registers well with other people in that space, like what they're getting engagement on, and then like getting on there. And it seemed like the video was driving a lot of it. And then he kind of boosted every once in a while if something went viral. He would wait till he saw like a pickup in viewers, and then he'd boost it with advertising. So is that like how have you seen LinkedIn work for you? Like for somebody who's just kind of like posting every once in a while or something, like what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you have to be extremely intentional, right? There's caps that LinkedIn prevents you from doing. You can't just go out and connect with 1,000 people a day. So we do it from an organic perspective. We have 10 people who are full-time employees of ours who we get into podcast scenarios like this on Riverside. And we're doing an in-house podcast with all 10 people. And we're producing videos on a daily basis and we're sending those out to all 10 of those profiles. And if you aggregate those 10 profiles, you're looking at probably 300,000 profiles. If you look at all of our employees, we're over 1 million, followers. We have over 1 million followers across our entire team,
Oh, interesting.
individual. So we're all working collectively on it as a company initiative, but we're creating content, we're writing copy, we're sending videos, all very short vertical videos now. And that's what's really resonating in a big way. And to Adam's point, right? Like, he is obviously a tool that he's selling, but you know, who cares how many people you're reaching out to on LinkedIn, or I'm sorry, on content, or how big your following count is, or how many website visitors you have, if you don't have someone behind that doing something with those leads. And what we're noticing is that full cycle sales reps aren't spending even an hour, if not 2 hours a day prospecting. They're just kind of waiting for inbound, which is what they've been used to because inbound was so prevalent for so many years. But now in the shakeup of the market, it's not. And what's harder than outbound right now is inbound, right? Frankly. So we are coming in there and pairing up with founders or even sellers and say, hey, listen, don't spend 3, 4, 5 hours a day prospecting. We'll do that for you, and spend all your day selling and closing and following up and
Hmm.
building the relationship.
And so you're doing, well, so back to LinkedIn real quick. So I thought that was really interesting. So you've got 10 people on staff, and are they all hitting the similar persona? Like,
Yeah. So there's 10 people on staff. Go to our website, click on content. You can actually follow them. We profile them as our mini influencers. They're full-time employees. They don't do anything different than their full-time job. And then we create a brand around them. It's not even company related. It's their own brand, their own colors, their own tagline. It's them. We're making, stars out of them, if you will. And that organically is creating a ton of free advertising for us. And then we have SDRs in their profiles prospecting on their behalf as ghost SDRs, reaching out to people very authentically, very strategically in our ICP, and asking them to have a conversation. Secondly, we're also targeting all of those people in our ICP as well with invites, 30 a day.
so are you dividing up like this is for younger people, this woman and this guy is for like our crypto bro ICP, and these guys are for like, are they separated into different parts of the ICP?
Yeah, so we have sales managers and sales directors, a part of that 10. They're reaching out to also sales managers and sales directors. We have VPs who are reaching out to VPs of sales. We have a COO reaching out to COOs. And then I have an SDR in my profile, and they're reaching out to CEOs. And we just feel like those class systems, if you will, profile to profile, they have more authentic conversations.
Oh, okay. So this is really interesting. I haven't heard of this before. This is cool. I love it. And it's it and there's a certain, I think certain owners are going to hear that and be like, "Oh, what am I building up someone so they can go take my business?" Right? Like one of these 10 people, you build them up into something, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, Gabe, like I'm not getting the return from I've got all this profile. Like, how do you manage that risk?"
Well, I think you need to have a good culture in order for your people to be happy about working where you're at. And I think the reality is that they're going to do it anyway, right? If someone's going to leave you, they're going to do it anyway. And hopefully you don't feel that way. Yeah. So that would be my initial response to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of, changes happening here, right? And, like, well, I was just doing a webinar right before one of the reasons I was delayed, and on AI, in the future, right? How it's gonna impact small business and in particular professional services. And it just strikes me that the only real moat you can get in the future is gonna be your personal take with like a community or follower or whatever you want to call it around it, right? So people like you and your take on stuff. And then maybe some, like data, like you can collect some personalized data and stuff like that. So your salespeople and marketing people are going to have to be sort of influencers in a way, right? Unless you can aggregate, I mean, you're finding a way to like, "Hey, I can extend my reach 10 times because" well, some of that is just LinkedIn limitations, right? So you're multiplying by 10 the limitation, rather than just building your own, right?
Yeah, I mean, my partnership manager, she's 10 months with us, and she came from a digital marketing agency, and she was very, successful on other channels, but not specifically with LinkedIn. She had 400 followers when she joined us 10 months ago. She just hit 9,000 followers in 10 months. Now, I will say, there's people that have done that 10x, and there's people who are still struggling to get to 5,000 after 5 years. So it's a matter of, putting an intention behind it and having her build her own brand around it. And to your point, right? It's like you want to work with people. So the only way to stand out against AI is to, put yourself out there and be authentic and be a person. I posted yesterday when I was having brunch with my wife on a Sunday what I ate, and then I related it to how I operate my life. And I got more content and engagement out of that than I did when I made a video about, how to do data segmentation. But both matters, right?
What did you have for brunch?
What did I have for brunch?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I always get the same thing. I did the cortado and an acai bowl with peanut butter. Pretty good.
Look at you. Look at you. That's so healthy. Cortado, and you're very European.
My
I
wife
love
is
it.
the health nut out of the two, I will tell you. So I
Okay.
just eat what she tells me.
Yeah, actually, I'd be a lot healthier if I just did what my wife did. That is my that would be a good diet plan. Um, Interesting. Okay, so I love this idea about, we're building brand, like, influencer brands around our salespeople. We're using that to, like, multiply the effort. What do you see that is it just like the old school stuff of, like, "Hey, you're a VP of this, so just talk about being a VP of this every day and blend it into who you are?" Or are there, like, set things that really work to help engage people?
Yeah, I mean, we are good friends with Revenue Magazine, Keenan, Gap Selling. We engage with him a lot. He's a client of ours, and we do a lot of collaboration. And I'm of the motto that sales is about solving problems and being authentic about issues that we come across or we work with our clients, and then sharing those problems. So anytime anyone is connecting with somebody on LinkedIn, out of those 10, they're just being authentic about it, and they're using real life examples of something that they're doing, and they can relate it also in their content. So it's not about aggressively pitch sapping people and asking for a demo on a direct message on LinkedIn. It's about, hey, I shared this video last week, right? And, I don't know if you're coming across this too, but we're working with a lot of companies in sales development that are in your title that really came to us and invited us in to help X, Y, and Z. If this ever, relates or resonates with you, let me know. And then they send a video of their own content. And now it just legitimizes it, as opposed to I don't get asked for case studies or white papers anymore. We share content that we're doing right now, and or content that we're producing and sending out on LinkedIn. And that's just our way of validating what we're talking about.
Yeah. And then, okay, so I'm all over LinkedIn right now, so that's why I'm going so deep on it. But let's go back and talk about, so it's surprising to me that cold calling is working, because I mean, literally, if I don't know the number, I'm not answering. And I'm probably like the worst nightmare, right? So, and if somebody calls like 3 times, I block the number. So how is that getting through? Is it just other people are picking up the phone and not like me?
Yeah, so not everyone does that. We see right now 35% connect rates all the way down to 1% connect rate. It depends on the industry that we're calling on. So for instance, if we're selling software to real estate agents, guess what? They pick up the phone. So they have a higher connection rate. We're selling to a golf course, they pick up the phone. And so it depends on who you're calling, for sure. But we're still, even at the low end, on averages, looking at that 5 to 7%, 8% connect rates. And then we score all of our leads. And there's companies out there that literally just do this, where they're scoring propensity to pick up the phone. And so they will go through all data and score it and then send it back. And then you just focus on calling the people who are scored, that have a high intent of just picking up the phone and going it from that perspective. But the way we cold call isn't just spamming, praying, and just like, with no intention. We're using LinkedIn, we're using email, we're using text, and we're using phone, all in a very specific way. But all of the messaging outreach is all towards getting to the phone call. So it's, hey John, I just left you a message right on LinkedIn here, and here's my email. Sorry to bother, but I just called you. When's a good time to give you a call? I'll reach you tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And I'll be talking that way in an email versus a 4-page paragraph of what we do that no one's going to read. So it's about promoting the call and then getting on the call and going from there.
Uh, and then are you using offshore labor and stuff for this, or is it how do you handle that cost issue?
Yeah, so we made 11 million cold calls as a company last year, to give you an example of the intensity of the volume. All of our employees are residents of where they're prospected into. So 75% of our team is in the US, and that's what we promote is US talent if they're prospected into the US. If they're prospected in Latin America or if they're prospected into Europe, they'll be sitting in those time zones with those accents. Super important. So this isn't an offshore team. Nothing against that. Of course, cost is much different when you offshore it. So we are at a price point that is not cheap, but we you pay for having someone in your area or in your home country calling. Secondarily, our reps are hireable, which is an interesting way of doing it because most teams come to us with a goal of doing it themselves one day. And I'll give you an example. When Zoom Info came to us, I was the second rep on SDR on Zoom Info over 10 years ago, and they didn't have any SDRs. Then they were a very small company. And so once they get bigger and bigger, they hired people from our company and brought them in to take over the sales development department in-house. So many companies have done that with us over and over again. So all of our reps are hireable, and that's why we want to keep our reps in those markets so they can eventually go work at those companies if the client wants to bring them in-house.
That's really cool. So, and is this like something that, or versions of the service could like a small, like say you're a small $5 million professional services company, can you afford this kind of service?
You can. I'll give you an example. We go down to a fractional rep. So admittedly, for a smaller entry, price point, we have reps that are sitting on 2 campaigns. They spend 20 hours a week on one campaign, 20 hours a week on a different campaign, and they're working 2 projects at a time. But the client is paying for that, right? The client is paying for a half a rep essentially on their campaign at a price point that is much more acceptable for a smaller business.
And what do you see like returns on this, like on the spend, like for the kind of stuff you're doing? Is it, I guess it depends a little bit on how the offer and the product, right, or service.
Vertical offer and ACV is how we figure out the math. An ERP system, a cybersecurity company, a commercial cleaning, you're talking multi 6-figure contracts. They can get, if they get 20 leads a month from a rep, they're doing backflips. We have a client called Rapsodo that sells golf simulators to golf courses, and our reps are booking 100 meetings a month. One rep is booking 100 meetings per month. So again, $700 unit so it has to make sense. And so yeah, there is of course the sales math that we have to figure that out for every single use case. But it definitely pays off, or we wouldn't be doing it. We got a bunch of happy clients right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can see some of those like big contracts. It can be like 10, 100 times the cost of whatever they're paying to get it, right? Depending on their close rate and the size of the deal and everything. So
The reality is someone is going to be doing it. So are you going to pay a 6-figure account executive to do it 10 times a day? Or are you going to pay a much better price point doing it, 150 times a day? Someone has to do it.
and you can be building your future team while you're doing it, right? So that's pretty powerful. That's a really I love that offer. Like it's a nice way of thinking through it, right? Because so much we spend so much time on like trying to prevent churn, and we want to keep clients in, and we're looking for all these ways to do that. And there's going to be, I think it's important to recognize like the life cycle of a client, right? And so if you're really good at growing them, they're going to get big, and then they're going to take stuff in house. So you might as well just be part of the life cycle, and then you make money when they leave, right? Obviously when they hire your person, right? But it's all good.
Yeah. when Outreach launched, like Outreach.io, we built their founding SDR team, and then they hired reps from us. Orem, their head of sales operations, was the first SDR to make calls on that platform when they were working with us. We were their first SDR team.
I mean, in a way, and then all your kind of processes are built into their organization. So you basically train their people and created the process for them.
And the playbook is part of the program. And so anyone can go hire an SDR and say, here's a list, go call them. But it's not about that. It's about the enablement piece and the culture and training piece, right? Most companies who are hiring SDRs are going to hire one or two SDRs. And then there's going to be constant churn, then backfilling, and then training, and just keeping them motivated each and every day. We have 100 SDRs making calls together, and they're all on different clients, different companies, different campaigns. But at the end of the day, they feel like they're a part of a huge team, even though the client is only, getting one SDR from us. And so that is very much a part of what we offer. And then data and tools and dialer and email platforms and dashboards, that's all included. So a company come to us and say, I don't even have a list. I don't have a Zoom info license. Can I work with you? I'm like, yeah, we have all of that. We build it all for you. You get the whole department.
And it's the same SDR doing LinkedIn and calls and everything, or are they different skill sets?
So we tried to separate it before, thinking that maybe if we specialized. We saw some of our competitors doing that as well, and we quickly went back to not doing that. It just, to my point earlier, is like, you want the same person on all those channels. It's too hard to manage, and it just is too separated, and it doesn't do the human thought process behind it. Someone responding emails over here, making calls over there, doing LinkedIn over there. Just one, getting them all to talk to each other. And no, there's platforms that allow you to do that, but just having it separated does create a significant disconnect when it comes to the quality of the lead, is what we found. So we don't do that anymore.
And then what does it take to like get someone to be a good SDR? Are they like, I mean, obviously you're providing tools and playbooks and feedback and all that stuff. So a lot of training, but do you think it's like natural for a certain kind of person to do that, John?
I used to, but I don't anymore. We have a lot of introverts that are phenomenal SDRs. Everyone thinks you got to be a talker to be an SDR. And I will say, if you're a good talker, you probably, with right coaching. But then sometimes they talk too much, right? And so it's not really about the skill set as much as we look for is grit, motivation, and desire. If someone just has the drive and just doesn't give a shit about what someone says to them in a positive or negative way, and is just super diligent and resilient, like I'll take that all day long and train them how to handle objections.
So
But I
can I
always say,
send my
yeah,
kids? Can I send my kids to you for the summer? And like, I
sure,
feel like
we'll do
I need to do
internships.
this, and like, my kids need to go do this for like 4 months, 5 months, and really learn.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a grind for sure, but that's the magic, right? That's where it starts. I remember so many, again, killer entrepreneurs, CEOs. I mean, I was an SDR in my first job, so I think a teach is really it's the gateway to where you ever want to be in business to business for sure.
Oh man, I love it. I love it. I think I need an internship. Good at the company.
Okay,
Like,
we'll set it up. Let's do it.
get my sales skills up. And so, how are you guys like deploying AI in this, if at all? Like,
Oh, everywhere. I mean, yeah. So we're not replacing humans, but we're absolutely enabling the hell out of them. Our AEs are doing research with AI before they go into the calls. We have AI role plays training seminar, our sessions where, our SDRs are battling AI role play software to get them excited, to get them trained. We score them every single day. Yeah, we're using AI everywhere, but we're not using it to just make auto calls as a robot. I mean, one, it's illegal in the US, but secondly, we're using it in every way we possibly can. And because cold calling and physically talking to people is so important to us, we're not relying on just emailing everybody, and we're not an email only lead gen firm. That's not what we do.
yeah, yeah. Like I was just again on this webinar, and I was showing how I do a deep research report on what are all the best modern sales tactics, right? So it goes out and searches all these websites. And I put that into like a GPT and I say, hey, give me blunt feedback, look for this, look for that. And then I just take transcripts of calls I do and put it in there, and it scores me. When then I put in like 4 or 5 and it said, build me a script. And then every time you evaluate me, Like, score me, give me one big takeaway, and then help me update the script so I get better.
Yeah, it's awesome. You take an AI call or you take a call, you put it in AI, do that transcript, turn it and make it your own. It's awesome. There's tools right now. Some guys that left Orem on good terms. The I can say this are using some really cool tools that scores SDRs, allows them to do role plays, but also gives them live battle cards. Right. So if you're on a call and they hear say, "Hey, say this live," and it gives people live scripts to use or objection handling to use on a live call. Cold call.
That was one of the things I got dinged on is I didn't invite objections, right? So it was like, "Hey, you're, like, glossing over this, invite objections." But that would be so amazing if in the moment, it could be sitting there going, "Hey, based on all this data we've looked at, like, you should say this."
Yeah, I mean, just think Saturday Night Live and cue cards, right? Like if you're on your live call and you just got your cue cards there, you should be good to go. But this one is even more because you have to think about what to say next when they say something. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool. So, and then so you've been how long has the business been around?
16 years.
16 years, and about do you mind saying either employee or revenue, like how big you guys are?
Yeah, so the first 5 years we were just a sales training agency. I wasn't part of the company. It was founded by two brothers, and they were more of a sales training firm. And then 11 years ago is when we got started with the SDR function and have grown the team since then. We've employed over 2,500 SDRs in the last 11 years that have come through the company, and we're over $10 million in revenue.
Wow, that's so cool. And, you just think about the impact of those 2,500 people, right, who've been trained and, like, know what they're doing. Um, and where do you see it going, like, in the future? Do you think this is, like are you trying to grow this? Like, what's the strategy? You should ask ChatGPT what your next 5 years is.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, the reality is we feel that the sales team more than ever before needs to be supported. There needs to be more qualified leads in front of the sellers now more than ever before, and so we're growing with that. They're hiring more SDRs than ever before, even though teams seem to be shrinking. There's a lot of industries that are adopting the role itself. So, for instance, all these VPs of sales that may have worked at tech or SaaS companies that have gotten displaced over the last handful of years have gone out to other industries to be VPs of sales that are not sales and tech companies. And the first thing they're asking their CEO is, "Hey, where are my SDR teams?" And they're literally saying, "What the hell is an SDR?" I have to define it to some companies these days.
Yeah, well, define it for us versus, like, a typical salesperson.
Yeah, so an SDR is focusing 100% of their time on lead generation and prospecting. I always say they're the trailer to the movie. Their job is to not answer in-depth questions. Their job is to not do a full-length demo. Their job is to not sell or close business. Their job is to set those people up and book time and calendars so a sales team could walk in Monday morning, flip open their laptop, and there's 15 meetings on the calendar with people excited to meet with them. That's what an SDR does. And that's what we focus on.
And does that is there a role before the SDR, which is like finding just a lead, right? So you would separate out because most people would think marketing sort of bleeds into that SDR role, right? And you're separating that out, or they might even have their salespeople doing marketing, right? So marketing is supposed to
Yeah. So like a sales engineer, like we now know like, oh, let's bring our sales engineer into the call. We have what we call rev ops or revenue operations, which this is a data team, right? Who's making sure that our ideal client profile is accurate. Our data is accurate that fits the ideal client profile, that we're scoring and verifying and validating those that contact information. So those are people that would be supporting the function of the SDR, which again, making sure that we're throwing strikes every single time we go at that as opposed to just wasting time reaching out to people that are one, not an ideal client profile, but more importantly, even someone who doesn't pick up the phone.
yeah, I love this because have you read the Machine, Justin Rolf Marsh?
Not yet. I'm writing it down
So
though.
yeah, really interesting guy. I saw him just do something for a EO entrepreneurs organization chapter thing, learning event, and so his philosophy um, was we've got to, and it goes into sort of the SDR piece, but like, is that we've got to turn sales into a machine where it's just like a step by step process. And everybody in the process has one role and that's all they do. So like salesperson just has a selling conversation, like you're saying. Like they show up, the meeting's on their calendar, the research is done, they just have like closing conversations, right? That's their job. And then they don't even like, in his view, they don't even update the CRM, like some admin person does that, right? And so there's somebody doing the data in the front, somebody qualifying and like getting the lead into the calendar. There's somebody, and then like even after quoting and follow up is another, that's like customer service or something. I can't remember exactly what it says it is, but each one has a very specific siloed role. And he does this more for like PE larger companies, so not everybody can do it. Not everybody can afford it. But like you're saying, fractional services like yours could be a huge help.
Yeah, I mean, I always say when we're working with a company, especially founder-led sales, they just got money, they're ready to bring something to market. I say, you have to Henry Ford this thing. Henry Ford, you got to figure out the assembly line to the same point as a gentleman about the machines. Like you need to have an assembly line of sales. And that's exactly how I'd say, like, who is creating the demand, who is doing the content, who is doing the first call, who is doing the second call, and throughout the entire process, all the way into retention. And we have an actual diagram it's the first slide in our demo, and we Henry Ford the entire sales journey for everybody to see. And this is a quintessential sales journey. And this right here is where we live. And by the way, if you can't handle this and you can't handle this, no matter how good we are, it breaks. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's exactly how we do it. And that's how we believe we live in between marketing and sales. And by the way, they're always at odds, right? Sales is yelling at marketing, my leads suck. And marketing is yelling at sales saying you can't close my leads. So we come in there and figure out how to get those two people almost like marriage counselors working together.
Well, you're even a step beyond like most of the people I'm talking to and the kind of company I built, right? I was in B2B, well, B2G, actually, professional services. And it's like you're marketing the work, you're selling the work, you're doing the work, it's
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
whole life
Yeah.
cycle, right? And most people just get stuck because they can maybe do all of those things, and some of them they do B plus and some are A's, right? But they're
Right.
jumping from thing to thing, and so there's no
Yeah.
consistent effort. Even marketing agencies,
Right.
right? The owner's like delivering and then jumping back to lead
Yeah.
generation, and
Exactly.
it's like it now that wor look, when you're a million and a half dollars, maybe that's what you gotta do, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
At least you can get like an admin or somebody, a virtual assistant to do some parts of it for you, right? So that you're not
Right.
Johnny on the spot on everything. But as you start getting up to that 3 to 5 million, you gotta start really looking at moving past the founders jumping around doing all this stuff because it just blows up on you and you're a
Yeah.
crazy
And
person.
it's interesting. A founder's coming to me, I just hired my VP of sales and they tell me I need SDRs. I'm like, well, you already made the first mistake. Don't hire a VP of sales day one, because the first thing they're going to do is exactly that: build a team for you and spend more of your money, not get business.
I'm a chief. I don't do the Indian stuff, right?
Yeah. So we tell the founders, hey man, you're the best salesperson, even if you're not a salesperson, and let's get people in front of you. And then let's build the process and figure out the assembly line and figure out all the procedures. And then you actually have something to scale.
I love it. Yeah, because that's what I always recommend. Like early on, all you should be doing is trying to get rid of all the other activities from the owner except for sales. But then when you get up to like your size, like 10 million, then you've got to start having a process because you're either selling a lot more or a lot bigger things to bigger people, right? And then like I find that there's a trap there where the owner has gotten there because they're good at sales, but now they have no idea how to structure a sales department, right? They don't know how to run that, and and bringing in guys like you, who can help them build the processes in that they can then take and internalize is like the perfect way to do it.
And there's fractional everything these days. I think it's the new word, right? But, it's okay to fractionalize this thing. It really is. It's okay to bring in a fractional CRO. It is okay to bring in, fractional HR people, finance people. So to think that sales can't be fractionalized or outsourced is really not the way to look at it, in my opinion, especially economically. Like, it costs way too much money to buy these tools and data and licenses and managers. Just fractionalize it with the intent of doing it yourself too. And that's one thing that, we don't shy behind. We're not here to, be your partner forever. If you want to be, we can. We've had 10-year relationships with clients. That's fine. But in 2 years, you should be able to bring this all in house. And by the way, you can hire our people to do that. And so we absolutely celebrate that.
I love that. Yeah. That's a really interesting, I like this model because you got to think through how the long-term high price retainer business is not going to work long. It's not going to scale. And you've got to come up with new ways to ameliorate the problems with that model. I think so I love this, like you get fractionalized experts. They have access. Increasingly, it's about data and systems that they have access to, and they really know them. So on one side, it's like they really know LinkedIn. Another side, it's like, hey, we have subscriptions to all these key data sources that would cost you tens of thousands, right? And then I can fractionalize all that, so I can make it available to people farther down. You get much more sophisticated help earlier on, and then I can grow into a full, like, it's almost like I don't have to go reinvent everything when I get bigger, because I'm just going to grow with a service, like a maturity service. I love that. That's perfect.
And additionally, with Fractional, they are very well networked, and you'll be able to leverage their network and their connections much more success. I mean, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, we have this company that does executive wine dinners, and we're booking appointments for them. So they're a bunch of former,
Can I go?
sommeliers. Yeah. And they do
I'm
big,
an
awesome
executive.
wine events for executives. Yeah, you're welcome. See, this is my point.
I love
This
wine.
is exactly my point. So they're a client of ours, but I also have 400 fractional CROs who are part of my referral network. So I just sent an email to them and said, hey guys, anyone like to have executive wine dinners for a sales kickoff for your sales kickoffs next year? And like literally 50 people said, yeah, right away. And I sent it. So it's just this fractional community of all helping each other out. And it really, really pays off in a big way, not just for what you mentioned, but also, fractional people usually can bring things to the table that maybe a full-time VP of sales can't.
That's awesome. Well, Gabe, this has been incredible. Like I feel like I got a new perspective and learned a bunch of stuff. So if you have not found a person yet who, and your SDRs aren't all over them, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, it would, I mean, obviously, since our conversation. So you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Me, I'm personally on LinkedIn. We provide a lot of free training and videos and content daily. And, get to know us and reach out. And we'll definitely.
Well, I'm going to have my product. I have this new product coming out soon. So I'm definitely going to be calling you about some
Sounds good.
SDR stuff for that. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
Sounds good. Thanks so much,
Gabe,
Alan.
it's been awesome. And appreciate you being on the pod.
Thank you, sir.
You've been listening to the Small Business Black Holes podcast with Alan Pence. For more insights on mastering the new game, follow @apent, that's APENTZ on X, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, in today's world, you don't follow the rules, you write them.